بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلي وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى اله واصحابه اجمعين ومن تبعهم باحسان الى يوم الدين اما بعد. So I was thinking, why is there nobody here? And then I was informed that there was an ice cream truck outside. So I don't know if that's the cause or not, because I think I did see the ice cream truck. So it can be difficult sometimes, sit in a room, eat ice cream outside. So Jazakumullah khair for cooking the room instead of ice cream. But maybe because you don't like ice cream. You don't like ice cream?
No.
You don't like ice cream? So why aren't you eating ice cream?
I like it.
So it makes me feel better that you're here. I want an ice cream.
I'll get it.
But I can't eat and talk at the same time. Alright, so inshallah, as usual, we're going to begin with one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the name today, inshallah, I chose was the Al-Alim. So Al-Alim. So Al-Alim comes from Al-Ilm. It's root from Al-Ilm. What does Ilm mean in English? Knowledge, okay. And how do you define knowledge?
Know about something.
Or you're defining knowledge as knowing about something. So what is knowing?
Acquiring something, information.
So information by itself is knowledge. So this computer has knowledge.
No.
Yes?
Information.
Information is different than knowledge. Data is different than knowledge.
Knowledge is like heck.
Wisdom is above that. Wisdom is more.
Knowledge need to be aware of.
Wisdom, okay, you cannot have wisdom without having knowledge. Put it that way. Sometimes you can only define things by their opposites. Yes? What is big? Define big. Large, right? We define large. So sometimes you can only understand things by knowing the opposites. Okay. So in this case, knowledge is the opposite of. Come on, guys. Knowledge is the opposite of ignorance. Thank you. I thought I was speaking gibberish for a second. Okay. So knowledge is the opposite of ignorance. Right? So they say al-ilmu naqidul jahl. So ignorance. So when a person is not ignorant, which means he is knowledgeable. A person is not knowledgeable, then he is ignorant. Good. Now, when we talk about the name Alim, right? So it comes from the root fa'il, which means an exaggerated form of whatever this term is. So when we talk about Alim, is an exaggerated term of ilm. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Alim, which means extensively, completely knowledgeable. All absolute knowledge. This is what it means. Now, of course, in the Quran this was mentioned. So, for example, when the angel said, قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ الْعَلِيمُ الْحَكِيمُ. Right? You are, when they say, Subhanaka, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are above all defects, you're far away from that. لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا, there is no knowledge for us, إِلَّا مَا عَلَّمْتَنَا, except what you have taught us. Verily, you are the Alim, the most knowledgeable, Al-Hakim, the most wise. Okay. So there's a difference between wise and knowledge. That's it. So there's a difference between knowledge and right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also said, like, قال ربي يعلم ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو السميع العليم. So there's various verses in the Quran that mentions, actually a lot of them. Right. Now, what does it mean in terms when we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we say that He is Al-Alim? It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable. He has knowledge without needing to be taught that knowledge. So this is some of the subtle differences between us. Because a human being can be called knowledgeable, right? Is that right? But there's obviously, when this attribute is related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is different when it's related to us. For us, before knowledge we were ignorant. We attain this knowledge either being taught or we teach it ourselves. But either or is not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no ignorance preceding that knowledge for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was always knowledgeable. And nobody would teach him that knowledge subhanahu wa ta'ala because He is the source of all knowledge in the first place. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we talk about Al-Alim, we were saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable of all things, all His creations. That He knows the seen and the unseen. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is in the open, the out, and what is hidden. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also knows our most hidden things, such as our thoughts, the things that are placed in our hearts. So Allah ta'ala, when He says Allah ta'ala subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is secret and what is even more hidden, right? More secretive. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable and continues to be knowledgeable. He knows what happened all in the past, in the present, and in the future. He knows every single detail of it. It's important that we understand that Allah knows all details of everything, the intricacies of it, all these things. And He encompassed everything with knowledge. And whatever knowledge we attain is only a subset or a fraction, a very minimal fraction of the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us. And so we can never really have any comprehensible form of absolute knowledge of anything. Not even Allah Himself. We can never have complete and absolute knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of His greatness subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when we talk about this name, we always try to reflect of how would it affect our belief. How does it affect us as believers? Okay, so when you think of Allah as the Alim, what does that entail us? How does that affect us?
We seek knowledge from Allah.
Good. We seek knowledge from Allah. We ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What else? Because we believe, we affirm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has complete knowledge, right, over everything. And this complete knowledge is only for Him, and there's nobody like that is to the likeness of this. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us. Okay, good. What else? Come on, what else?
He established that we can never understand.
He established that we can never completely comprehend everything that is true. Yes. What else?
Trust.
Excellent, trust. That's a great step, right? So how does us knowing that Allah is Alim make us trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Or have trust and faith in Allah?
We have faith in.
How does that happen? You made a statement, give an example. What do you mean by that? How is this us knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has the attribute of Al-Alim, the most knowledgeable, make us have faith and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Our belief is so strong
That is true, but why? What's... You made that statement. Come on.
So anything comes from Allah, we should have trust on it, like the Quran, the Sunnah, because He's the most knowledgeable.
Okay.
A trust could be like when you do a good work and you don't know the result, but you trust Allah that the result will come out.
Good. When you don't know why things are happening or because of what. So essentially, you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has complete knowledge, He knows what we don't know. But He also knows the consequences or the effect of certain actions, the end result of things. It's called awaqib al-umur, right? The end results or the consequences of things. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always aware of such a situation. We may not fully comprehend why something is happening. Is that right?
Yes.
But we trust that Allah knows it's happening, and He knows why it's happening, and for what reason. Is that understood? It really benefits us a lot when we sometimes, for example, something on different levels, right? So for example, when we try to debate or find the wisdom behind certain rulings. Why is this, for example, not permissible? Why is this permissible? Why did, Allah tell us to do something? Why did He not tell us to do something? Right? When you have these sort of questions, you have to have a base that you come from, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is more knowledgeable than us. There is obviously a wisdom behind it, whether we know it or we don't. Whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ruled for us, in terms of laws or prohibitions or regulations, whatever the case is, it's because He knows us more than we know ourselves. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the consequences of specific actions. If they happened, what would happen? And so this is why certain actions would be encouraged, others would not. The end result of things. Okay. Because a lot of times we fall into this debate of why is it, for example, haram to do this? Or why is it mandatory to do this? The reality, and of course, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us and it's His right, but one thing we can fall on in terms of when we talk about trust is that we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a kid. Somebody's kid?
No.
He's seeking something.
I think he's just playing. He's good. Okay, good. He's good. He's good. Alright, so we trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, knows why things are happening. But also when we think of times of calamities, right, we ask why something is happening. Knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is happening, and He allows things to happen, all these things happening out of His knowledge, and for a reason, and for a wisdom. Is that understood? By the way, knowledge and wisdom is very kind of interconnected, so sometimes we kind of cross into those. Because in the end, when we try to debate these things, we have to know that our knowledge is limited compared to Allah. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And you were not given from knowledge except little. No matter what we try to do, we can never really comprehend the details of everything. And so we have to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because one of His attributes and names is that He is the most knowledgeable. It comforts us knowing that if this is what Allah ruled, then it must be best for us and better for us. Now this also tells you how problematic it is when we start saying or start debating, or individuals start debating the morality or the wisdom behind certain actions. When you start saying, I know it's haram, but I can control this or I can do this. It's saying you're almost subtly saying, whether subtly or not subtly, directly or indirectly, saying that I know myself more than Allah. There's a problem with this, okay? So for example, Basil, you're asleep yet? No. Are you good? Fine. When somebody says, we fall into this law, right? We know something, for example, is mandatory, okay? And or something is haram, okay? We say something is haram. And then we start doing it. And we ignore the fact it's haram. And we're saying, I know what I'm doing. Or at least I know what I'm doing. Sometimes we do this, right? I don't know if I have to talk about this a little bit in the khutbah this Friday. We have something that is wrong, okay? We say that this is wrong. And we say, okay, I know my limit. I'm going to go into this wrong because I'm not going to go into the bigger wrong. Okay? You're saying, I know I'm not going to do it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you not to go into this first place because He knows if you go down that road, it will lead you to the bigger haram. Okay? But you're saying, no, I know myself. Right? I can control myself. This is better for me. I know what I'm doing. Right? This over here is a fallacy. This does not, essentially you are not perhaps completely believing in that attribute. That you might have a reduction in the understanding or belief in that attribute. Because if you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is most knowledgeable, then He knows what is best for you, then you abide by it. That's how really it affects us in terms of practice and belief. Now I don't know if there's anything else I want to mention. I usually want to spend 10 minutes. I think I did spend my 10 minutes. Inshallah. Any questions about that?
Yeah, one
Yes.
about when you struggle for something, doing something good, and it's not anything wrong, but and then you can be passive, like, okay, Allah knows the result, so why should I even struggle for it?
Because Allah knows your struggle. Actually, he points something else. It's good. Knowing that Allah knows what you're doing actually enables us to have more sincerity, but also allows us to do what is good and not caring whether people know about it or not. Is that clear? So when you want to be passive, give an example of being passive. Give an example.
Not stopping something wrong or passive or...
Okay, how is that not stopping something wrong? So you're saying I'm not going to stop because Allah knows it's happening.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
But that same Allah told you should do something. Is that right?
Yeah.
So why is there a contradiction?
Can I inject you? I think what you mean basically is that if there's a fitna going on, right, in front of your eyes, he wants to stop it, but just because of kind of the ecosystem that you live in or whatever it is, it can have applications into more, into a bit more vicious results at that point. Kind of you become cautious from implementing certain solution.
Is that what you mean? No.
No, I'm like, just take the whole worldly thing, like you're working, and then, you know, if I struggle, I can get better, but this is destined for me, so whatever is coming to me is, it's predetermined, so why should I even struggle to get
So,
better?
do you know what's predetermined for you?
No.
Then why do you decide to work versus not work, or not work versus work? So what? So you not working can lead either to becoming the boss of the company or getting fired.
Fired.
Okay. So you're gonna sit there and say, well, it's coming anyway, right? I might as well not do anything. Is that how it works?
Yeah, but you say, okay, risk is written, so it will.
That is true,
knowledge.
but also the actions associated with it is written because you are asked to work, because you do not know the end result, do you?
No.
No, you don't. Right? You don't. Because it's the same excuse as the disbelievers used. لَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَهَدَانَا. If Allah willed, He would guide us. It's written. Is that an excuse? But you're using that excuse.
I'm asking them.
I'm asking, you're using that excuse. I'm not pointing at you, right?
Yeah,
I don't
I
want you, I'm
understand.
talking about those,
I understand.
that idea itself, right?
Yeah.
But those individuals are still using that idea, even though they say it is not valid. Because, can you imagine how much I can use this excuse? I can get up and, grab his laptop and break it. And say, hey, it was written.
Or don't pray.
No, I'm just going to give you something. Like, it's not, because people can use the laziness. If I get up and break his laptop, and when he yells at me, I say, hey, why are you yelling at me? It's written. Is that an excuse?
No.
It's not an excuse. Why is it not an excuse?
Your action.
Because you're accountable for your actions. Is that right? The same thing, but you're also, so predestiny is part of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is true, okay? But you're not forced. And yes, your risk has been written. But you don't know how you're going to attain that risk. Do you know how you're going to attain that risk? You don't know. You don't know how much risk is supposed to be. But your actions, yes, they have written, but you don't know which actions to take. You might think, I'm going to sit here, but guess what? That you not sitting here is the one that's written. No, I'm going to move. Oh, wait, that's what is written. You don't know which one it is. So you're asked to seek, right? You're asked to work. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, put rules and principles and regulations that govern this world, and part of it is the cause and effect. So you have to work.
Yeah.
But when you're working, you're trusting in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You know that the rizq is going to come to you, so you don't commit something that is haram. You know that the rizq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala disperses belongs to Him and is not attained by angering Him, right? So all this is put together. The problem happens is when you only take one aspect and that's it. Well, what about everything else that's been mentioned? Why aren't you applying that? Why are you picking this one aspect? And this is what kind of gives a lopsided understanding, and it's problematic because it gives a distorted version of our practices. It shouldn't be like that. It should be more of like you take all the teachings, yes?
And there is a surah, I believe, like, وَقُلْ يَعْمَلُوا فَسَيَرَى اللَّهُ عَمَلًا.
Yeah, work. But the Sahaba asked that same question. But you're going more into more like a predestiny now. It's more of a whole other realm of aqidah. But yes, part of predestiny is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything. He knows what was like in the past, in the future, in the present, and what did not happen. If it would happen, what would it look like? And this is by the way of Quran, right? When the disbelievers, they asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to return us and we'll do good. He said, وَلَوْ, if we would return them, they would still do the same thing. So Allah ta'ala is telling you that yes, they're not going to return, but if they return, this is what's going to happen. عَلِمَ مَا كَانَ وَمَا يَكُونُ وَمَا كَانَ وَمَا كَانَ وَمَا سَيَكُونُ وَمَا لَمْ يَكُنْ إِذَا كَانَ كَيْفَ يَكُونُ. He knows what happened and what will happen, and what did not happen, if it would happen, how it would happen. Sounds confusing, but just try to follow it, I guess. Alright? But anyway, so that has to do with the attribute, the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Alim. Alright, so, yes?
I like kind of my example about being passive, was kind of alluding to, is that when you see things.
When you see things, but you're worried about the repercussions of what's happening to you.
Not to you, but as an overall bigger society, it may happen, and you kind of become more passive.
Okay, so give me an example.
I mean, it's like the bars all over the city.
Okay,
What do you
bars.
do?
That's fine. Okay, fine. I decided that
a
there's
lot of
bars.
examples, right? I mean,
You do what you are able to do in the city. Right? You talk to people, tell them, getting drunk is stupid.
yeah, I mean,
Alcohol is not beneficial. Look, here are studies. They cause 60 different types of cancer. They do all these things. You know what I mean? You can talk about them in so many different ways. Anybody who has logic will not, you can do whatever you can. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not, make obligatory upon you except what is within your limits. Okay? Yes?
السلام عليكم. الشيخ أحمد بنتي سألتني سؤال أنا معرفتش أجاوب عليها على أساس أن الله سبحانه وتعالى عليم وخبير. الله يعلم ما سيحدث وما سيحدث في المستقبل زي ما حضرتك قلت، لكن هي سألتني سؤال غريب قوي، قالت لي لما الله سبحانه وتعالى عارف اللي بيحصل الأحداث للمسلمين في سوريا وفي فلسطين، فالله سبحانه وتعالى يعلم إن المسلمين ضعفاء وإن هم مش هيقدروا يعملوا حاجة وإن القدس هتضيع طب يعني لماذا الله سبحانه وتعالى يعلم ان هذا سيحدث للمسلمين ويعلم ان احنا مش هننتصر في الاخر، ورغم ذلك ربنا بيحطنا في الابتلاءات وفي المحن دي. بس انا ما اعرفش يا جماعه اذا كان الله يعلم كل شيء ليه المسلمين بيتحطوا في الابتلاءات وفي المحن دي؟
So what? Okay, so the question is, if Allah knows everything, why are we put through tests and trials? Is that right? Basically the question. Why are we put through tests and trials? Is that right? Is that basically the question?
Yeah.
All right. Is it fair? Okay, so I'm going to give you a scenario. Okay, a judge is sitting and there's a person doing something, right? Or a person is being judged for something. The judge knows that the person who is being prosecuted, he knows that this person has done something wrong. Okay? There's no way to prove it. Can that judge judge him and pass a sentence on him, put him in jail? No. Okay. I, as a parent, know my children, know their defects, and know what they were doing wrong. Can I punish my child for something he does wrong before he does it?
No.
Can I reward him for something before he does it?
No.
He would love it. He would love to get rewarded before they do it. But it's not logical, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is an excuse we will use, because we are only responsible for our actions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts trials and tribulations on us as a test so that we would act in certain ways, right? So we see our actions, our results. But that question is based on the fact that you're thinking or your perception of what is good and what is evil. Okay. It is based on your idea of what is just and what is not just, what is mercy, what is not mercy. Right? It's based on your own perception, okay, your own subjective opinion, and you're forgetting that we're dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a wisdom behind this. Many different types of worships do not appear except in times of tribulations. Is that clear?
Yes.
Some people, for example, if left alone and not trialed, might not go into heaven because they don't have enough hasanat. But those trials and tribulations cleanses their sins, and because they're patient, they get hasanat, and so they're elevated to go to Jannah. I'm just giving you an example. Okay. Some people cannot achieve the status of shuhada except by this venue. Dua and going back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes does not happen except in the times of calamities. And when we really see this us ourselves as human beings. So for example, many of us do things that are haram. Is that right? Anybody does not do anything haram? Raise your hand. No angels around? Okay, good. But how Hamza, what are you looking at? Okay. You know something about your sisters? You know something about your sisters? I thought you were looking at your sisters. Okay. Maybe you know they're doing something? No? Alright. So, sometimes what makes us stop doing these things and realizing our true weakness is sometimes times of difficulty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes puts us in those positions to remind us, where are you going? Right? Stop. And so it turns us back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes a community does not come together in times of hardships. Now, if you guys watch movies, sometimes this happens, right? The entire city, they're fighting, or families are fighting, and they only come together in times of... There's many wisdoms behind it. You might not see it, but all you're thinking... Actually, the person who's thinking that is thinking more emotionally than anything else. Why is this happening to me? Right? Well, first of all, they said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not questioned about what He does, you are questioned. But you have to go back to the basis that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is knowledgeable, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful. So all these actions must be out of wisdom for us, out of mercy for us. Whether you see it or you don't is irrelevant. Because you don't know the long-term effects of things. You don't. The reality, you don't. Okay. And so it's a more of a very detailed answer to that question. So why is there wars? Well, first of all, did Allah establish the wars? No, we established it by our own hands. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows, He placed sunnah, principles and laws that govern this world, that do not break. And so it is our actions and consequences that lead to these things. Did it happen with Allah's knowledge? Yes, it happened with Allah's knowledge. Right? There's nothing, they don't contradict. Is Allah obligated to stop it? Nothing obligates Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's happening out of His knowledge. He allows it to happen. Nothing happens out of the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Out of His wisdom for A, B, and C, and D to happen. How many times will something bad happen to you, you think it's bad at that time, but then in the future when you look back at it and say, SubhanAllah, it was the best thing to happen. Right? Like for example, I know throughout my life, for example, I either lost a job or I did not get into a specific college or whatever the case is. When I look back at it, I say, SubhanAllah, it was the best thing ever to happen for me. Is because our knowledge is so limited. We only look at where our feet is. We don't look to the future. You do not know what's happening in the future. So that answer of why is maybe more emotional out of your own ignorance. You have no right to judge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You just go back to the basics. If you go back to the basics, this will help you. Is that clear? Yes? Alright. Now I want to switch to the angels now. Right. So where did we reach last time? What are we talking about? I know I put a note here somewhere.
Take the interaction of wahi.
Interaction of angels with humans, alright?
Yeah, of wahi.
Okay, they relate the wahi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to His messengers. Alright, so let's talk about the relationship of the angels with the human beings. So we talked about the relationship with Adam alayhi salam, the first creator, the first human being created. And that relationship with them, we gave a few examples, but then also part of the relationship between angels and the human is that the angels are the ones that deliver the wahy to the prophets. Of course, the Jibreel alayhi salam is the one that has the largest task of delivering revelation to messengers. Right? You all agree?
Yes.
So the entire Quran, for example, was delivered to the Prophet ﷺ through Jibreel alayhi salam. He is the one that brings the revelation. So for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ مَنْ كَانَ عَدُوًّا لِجِبْرِيلَ فَإِنَّهُ أَنزَلَهُ عَلَى قَلْبِكَ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whomever takes Jibreel as an enemy, verily we have sent him down upon your heart with the revelation with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مُصَدِّقًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ, with the truth between his hands. Now, of course, do you guys understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ مَنْ كَانَ عَدُوًّا لِجِبْرِيلَ, whoever takes Jibreel as an enemy?
How can you take angels as enemies?
Good question. Do you understand the story behind this? No? Alright, I'm going to tell you quickly. So the Jews, when they came to the Prophet ﷺ, and they asked him questions that only a prophet would know. Okay. And so they kept asking him, and the Prophet was asking questions. So they said, okay, here's the last one thing that will tell us for sure whether your messenger will follow you or not. Who is the angel that brings you revelation? Okay, that was the question. And so the Prophet ﷺ said, Jibreel. They said, Jibreel, that one? No. If you would have said Mikael, then it is fine. But Jibreel, he's our enemy. He only comes with destruction. And so subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Man kana aduwan li Jibreel. So whoever was the enemy of Jibreel. Because the Jews take Jibreel as their enemy.
But Jibreel brought up to Musa as well. So did Musa convey the message to his ummah?
Yeah, we're Muslims, we believe that. We're talking about the Jews, what they believe.
So they don't believe that.
So the Jews, based on this narration, they say that Jibreel is their enemy because he only comes with punishments. But in their belief, it's Mikael that comes with the mercy and the revelation. So their friend is Mikael. Jibreel is their enemy. Okay. But anyway. All right. Now, some occasions and sometimes. Now, okay. So here's something you have to ask, or something we have to realize. Revelation is not limited to the Quran. Does that sound strange? Does that sound strange? Revelation is not limited to the Quran. Okay, we have to understand this as Muslims because we unfortunately, some people think that only revelation is the Quran, but revelation is beyond the Quran, right? وَيُعَلِّمُهُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, right? He teaches the book and the wisdom. But there's many forms of revelation. But when something is revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, it is a form of revelation, whether it's from the Quran or not. In fact, this is also in the Quran itself. For example, when with أصاب النبي إلى بعض أزواجه حديثا فلما نبأها به قالت من أنبأك هذا قال نبأني عليم الحكيم. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ said. So in the Quran, the verse Quran, when the Prophet ﷺ had shared a secret with some of his wives, and then they revealed that secret, the Prophet ﷺ told them about it. And so they said, who informed you of this? He said, the one who informed me was the Al-Alim al-Khabir, the one who's most knowledgeable, most wise and detailed information. So this information, the revelation that came to him, was not the Quran, it was something else. Is that clear? Yes? Yes? Is that understood? It's important to establish this. Because unfortunately, we have people who say, you only read the Quran and that's it, only revelation of the Quran. That's a bit of a problem. Because the Quran himself says otherwise. I'll give you another example. The Prophet ﷺ, before turning to the Kaaba, where did he turn to? Where did he turn? Where was the Qibla? Masjid al-Aqsa, right? Quds, Masjid al-Aqsa. Now, where in the Quran does it say that we turn to the Aqsa? We will turn you to a direction you desire, which is Kaaba. So the Prophet ﷺ always wanted the Kaaba, but he was told to direct towards. He does not do it out of himself, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So what told him to do this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him, right? So that is a revelation. So I'm just telling you, revelation is not limited to this. So there are some angels that come to the Prophet ﷺ other than Jibreel with revelation. So for example, in a hadith in Sahih Muslim, Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, بينما جبريل قاعد عند النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, while Jibreel was sitting with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, سمع نقيدا من فوقه, he heard a sound above him, فرفع رأسه, he raised his head, فقال هذا باب من السماء فتح اليوم. So Jibreel saying to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, this is a door in the heaven has opened today. لم يفتح قط إلا اليوم, that this door was not opened before today. فنزل منه ملك, an angel descended from it. So this is an angel other than Jibreel, descended from it. فقال هذا ملك نزل إلى الأرض لم ينزل قط إلا اليوم. So Jibreel told him, this is an angel that is descending from the heavens to the earth, and this he never descended to the earth before. So the first time this door opens, the first time this angel comes down, فسلم وقال, so this angel came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he greeted the Prophet ﷺ وقال أبشر بنورين أوتيتهما لم يؤتى نبي قبلك فاتحة الكتاب وخواتيم سورة البقرة. So he said, he told the Prophet ﷺ, so now this is a form of revelation. He told the Prophet ﷺ, Abshir, have glad tidings with two lights. No prophet has been ever given those two lights, and it is the Al-Fatiha and the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. Is this a form of revelation or not? Definitely is, right? So, just to kind of, so anyway, so what the relationship is yes?
Wasn't the end of Surah Al-Baqarah was given to him when he went to Miraj? Rather than engine bringing it down to him?
Alright, so the question is, and some people say Surah Al-Fatiha too, by the way. So some people say that, or some hadith mentioned that some of the Quran was revealed to the Prophet or given to the Prophet ﷺ in the Mi'raj. That does not negate the fact that it was Jibreel that related him the first time. Because some verses of the Quran were revealed more than once. Right? A situation would happen and it gets revealed. Another situation similar to it and the same verse would be revealed. Multiple revelation of the same verse happens. But the first time it got revealed was through Jibreel alayhi salam. So this is a bit additive to it. It's not anything like that. Now there's an issue with saying Surah Al-Baqarah was revealed in Mi'raj. Because Surah Al-Baqarah is a Madani or Makki? Madani. Surah Al-Baqarah is Madani. And Mi'raj happened in Makkah.
Yeah, but it's the last, the Khawatim that was real.
I know, but the scholars say that the entire Baqarah is Madani. But even if it's not, it still does not contradict. So all these things are not
Which
contradictory.
is fine, that makes sense, because he got only the last two during his trip, not the
Right.
whole thing.
So one can say it's Fatiha because there are, if I remember correctly, the narrations say Fatiha, which could be fine because, talking about prayers over here that was revealed at that time, Fatiha would be revealed with it. Either or, plus or minus. To be honest, I can't remember the authenticity of these hadith, but nonetheless, it's still not contradictory. Right? So it can be revealed more than once. Yes.
I have a general question. Isn't everything that the Prophet ﷺ said is considered some form of revelation, like وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ?
That is true. That is true. That is one of the evidences that whatever the Prophet ﷺ is, he does not speak out of his own desires, but rather it is revelation. Okay, so there's other things than the Quran that are revelation. That is true. But you're going to get a bit more of a detailed, does the Prophet ﷺ perform ijtihad or he doesn't? It's about more detailed things, right? And is this ijtihad, is it a wahy, or is it his exerting the effort and it becomes established because Allah approves it? Do you understand what I mean?
So
Yes.
the revelation that came from Jibril, not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but his direct advice to Prophet ﷺ, where like your dependency on the people and that death will come in, those things.
Repeat that again from the beginning.
The revelation that Jibril came and gave it to Prophet ﷺ directly, which was not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but from his own advice. As far as death will come in, the dependencies on the worldly creation should not exist. There were 10 of them. Would we consider that revelation still revelation, even though it's advice from Jibril to Prophet?
So I don't know the hadith you're talking about, but
I can share with you after.
okay, but okay, we'll get to that. We're going to talk about it because Jibreel did give some advice to the Prophet ﷺ.
Yes.
But that advice is not out of the knowledge of Jibreel. It is of him knowing of the revelation.
Okay.
So for example, when the Sahaba give tafsir of the Quran, is it their own interpretation? Not necessarily, right? It's the understanding that they got from the Prophet, that he got, and so forth. So it's just Jibreel's understanding because it's based on the revelation. It's not contradicted. Yeah. But we should talk about that, inshallah. All right. Now, of course, here's a question, or something we have to mention, is that not every angel that has come with a revelation, or that come to a human being, and that human being is a prophet. Is that clear? Why are we saying that?
Because human does not get a revelation.
I know, but we say that, okay, but aren't there angels that have come and give some sort of a relation to humans or talk to them?
Yeah, like awliya Allah Salihin, for example.
Maryam, good, that's one. Sorry? Musa, that's the second one. So does it mean that they're prophets?
ومين في اليمن.
So, right? Guys, ladies. So does that mean they're prophets? No, they're not prophets, so it's not necessarily. But even then, there was an angel that was sent to a person who was visiting a brother, like his brother or a friend. He was visiting him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him an angel to tell him that Allah loves you. Right? So that's a revelation, right? Somebody's telling me that Allah is telling you something. I'm an angel, and Allah is telling you this. That's a revelation, isn't it? Does that make me a prophet? No. It does not necessarily, okay? So just have to distinguish, because unfortunately some people fall into that, they think that every person that had a revelation is a prophet, and so Maryam all of a sudden is a prophet, the mother of Musa alayhi salam is a prophet. Yes?
But isn't like انقطع الوحي بعد الرسول عليه الصلاة والسلام? So there is no more revelation after.
We believe that.
Yeah.
But does it mean that, for example, a person might not, Allah might not send an angel to a person to comfort them and tell them something? It is possible, right? It's not a revelation. I cannot establish a rule and regulation on it. In fact, it does happen, right? But at the time of death, though.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. Now, how did when the wahy came to the Prophet ﷺ, when Jibreel came to the Prophet with the wahy, especially when we're talking about the Quran, how did he come to him? You guys all should all know this.
In human.
One in human form.
Yeah.
It could be in human form, that's true, and talk to him. And then the other one? By the way, the companions asked the Prophet ﷺ, they said, كيف كان يأتيك الوحي? How does the wahy come to you? Right? He said, كان يأتيني, sometimes he would come, أحيانا يتمثل لي ملك رجلا فيكلمني فأعي ما يقول. Sometimes he come in a state of a man, and he would talk to me and I would understand him. Now, not everybody would see him. It would be just sometimes the Prophet ﷺ, just him talking to him. On one occasion, and I can't remember if it was Aisha, I think it might have been Aisha. Aisha had seen him. Right? So sometimes they can reveal themselves to specific people, sometimes other not. But anyway, so in form. But other than that, is there any other form? Well, you guys should know this.
His own original, when Prophet described him like he's covering the whole.
No, that's he only saw him in his complete form in 2 times. But we're talking about the entire Quran. The Quran, when it was revealed, the wahy would come to Rasulullah, he would come in 1 or 2 forms. Right? Even not just the Quran, but other things too. There's a human being speaking to him, but there's another thing that happens. Yes, it results into all these effects. The Prophet ﷺ would all of a sudden become heavy. He would start sweating when it's cold, and all these things. So what is this? Well, I guess the spirit is the Holy Spirit, I guess, if you want to call it. Ruh al-Amin, right? The Holy Spirit. So the Prophet ﷺ said, أحيانا يأتيني مثل صلصلة الجرس وهو أشد عليه. The Prophet ﷺ would hear this ringing. Okay? Now this ring, فيفصم عني, then it was separate from me. وقد وعيت عنه ما قال, and then I comprehend what he said. So in this state, the angel does not come in a human form, but comes in his angelic form. Not the complete form, but an angelic form. Now the human form and the angelic form are separate. For them to communicate, one has to reach the other. But in this case, the Prophet ﷺ has to elevate a little bit to it. And it is so difficult. This is the hardest of the form of revelation for Prophet ﷺ. He said, this is the most difficult for me. And he comes in that form, all I hear is just ringing. But then he comprehends what this ringing is. But this is why he would, for example, all of a sudden his weight would become so heavy. At one time, the Prophet ﷺ was on top of a camel. And when the revelation came to the Prophet ﷺ, because of the weight of the Prophet, the camel just collapsed, went down, right? One time also, I can't remember if it was Zayd ibn Thabit or who it was, but the thigh of the Prophet ﷺ was on his thigh, and then revelation came to the Prophet ﷺ, his thigh of the Prophet became so heavy, the Sahabi said it almost broke my own thigh, right? And Aisha would say that he would sweat so much, even in the coldest of nights, he would just kind of sweat, right? And you'd see the coloration of his sounds. And sometimes the Sahaba would say we'd hear we'd hear sounds around the Prophet ﷺ. Right? This is the ringing that the Prophet ﷺ is hearing. And then when it separates, the Prophet ﷺ understands it. So they usually say, but anyway, those are the 2 forms. So the easiest one form is in the form of humans, but the other one is in the angelic form. Now, now we're talking about a bit of Jibreel over here, right? Is Jibreel's role with the Prophet ﷺ, or his role generally, only to deliver revelation? I'm asking this because obviously the answer is no. Okay. So what are other things that he does?
Protect.
Is what?
Protection.
Protection. Protect who?
Prophets. And
there are other angels who do that too. Alright, so one thing, for example, other than reveal the Quran, one of the jobs of Jibreel was to review the Quran with the Prophet ﷺ. Right? He would review the Quran with the Prophet ﷺ how many times? Oh, come on, guys. that the Jibreel would review the Quran with the Prophet ﷺ. You know that, right?
Multiple times.
Okay. You know, in every Ramadan, they talk about this, that the Prophet ﷺ was generous, and he was most generous when he would meet Jibreel in Ramadan. Why? He reviews the Quran with the Prophet ﷺ. Come on, guys, you need to connect the dots. By the way, all of you have this information, but I think the problem we're having is you're not connecting the dots. Okay. So Jibreel would come to the Prophet ﷺ every Ramadan and review the Quran with him, the entire Quran. And this was the most, happiest time of the Prophet ﷺ he would do, enjoying this. And he would at least do this once a year, except the year of his death. He reviewed it with him twice. Okay? Except the year of his death, he reviewed it with him twice. Alright. Now, one of the other things that the Jibreel ﷺ did with the Prophet ﷺ, other than his jobs, is not just the Quran revelation, but also some of the applications associated with the religion. So, for example, when the Salah was established, okay, it was Jibreel himself that taught the Prophet ﷺ how to pray and the timings of prayers. He prayed with the Prophet ﷺ as the Imam. Right, so this is in Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ said, نزل جبريل فأمني. Right? Jibreel had descended and he was my Imam. فأمني معه ثم صليت معه ثم صليت معه ثم صليت معه ثم صليت معه. Right? And he counted 5. So those are the 5 prayers. Another hadith elaborates. He came over 2 days and he came at different timings to show him what are the timings of Fajr, Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha. Okay. So he even showed him the times of it. So he led the Prophet ﷺ in prayers. But not just that, he also taught the Prophet ﷺ how to make wudu. Right? So this is in Muslim Imam Ahmad. So Zayd ibn Hadith, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, أتاني جبريل في أول ما أوحي إليه فعلمني الوضوء والصلاة. That the Jibreel had come to me from when I had the wahi, and he taught me how to make wudu and prayers. Now, one of the other things that Jibreel himself has a relationship with what he did with the Prophet, or some of the jobs he did, is that Jibreel himself did ruqya to the Prophet. You know what ruqya is, right? And I don't know how to translate in English. Ruqya, which means cure. Right? A form of cure, but it's done by the Quran and dua. Okay, Zaman, that's ruqya. وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَاقٍ. Right? Who is it that's gonna cure me? Right? Is there anybody that can cure me? So a form of cure is not only limited to the medication itself, but it also includes spiritual aspect, but also actually physical cure can be included from the Quran and the verses of the Quran. So for example, in Sahih Muslim, Sunnah al-Tirmidhi, the Prophet ﷺ said, أتاني جبريل فقال يا محمد اشتكيت. Jibreel came to me and he said, Oh Muhammad, اشتكيت, which means, are you feeling ill? اشتكيت, which means I'm feeling sick. قلت نعم. So what did he say? He said, بسم الله أرقيك من كل شيء يؤذيك من شر كل ذي نفس وعين حاسد بسم الله أرقيك والله يشفيك. Right, so this is a dua. So Jibreel said, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, urqiq, I cure you, right? I give you ruqya. Min kulli shay'in yu'dhik, from everything that would harm you. Min sharri kulli dhi nafs, from the evil of every nafs. Wa ayni hasid, and the eye of the person who is envious of you. Bismillah urqiq, in the name of Allah, I cure you, and Allah will cure you. Okay, so this is a ruqya. Now there are other things that some of the other angels do, but specifically Jibreel, I want to talk about Jibreel for a second, brother, because many of us don't realize actually the type of relationship that Jibreel and Prophet ﷺ had. They had a really very strong bond and strong relationship. They actually, you can call it even emotional friendship. Okay. A really actually close one, to the point that the Prophet ﷺ, he would ask Jibreel, why don't you visit us more often? Right? When you love somebody, you want them to visit you. And so he would ask Jibreel, why don't you visit us more often? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned, like Jibreel mentioned in this verse of the Quran, وَمَا تَنَزَّلُ إِلَّا بِأَمْرِ رَبِّكَ. We don't come down except by the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, that just bring up the advice aspect, that the Jibreel alayhi salam actually sometimes would advise the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam because he loved the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember we talked about the angels' love? the Prophet Jibreel alayhi salam did love the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wanted the best for him, and so quite often he would advise the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam of what he believes is better. So for example, in Muslim Imam Ahmad, Abu Hurairah mentions that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting with Jibreel, and then once again, this is another story, but an angel from the heavens had come down, and he had never come down before. When he came, he said, the angel said to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Ya Muhammad, أرسلني إليك ربك, and he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent me to you, and he's asking you, أفملكا نبيا يجعلك أم عبدا رسولا. So this angel came to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allah is asking, do you want me to make you a king, a prophet that is a king, or a prophet that is a servant and a slave? Jibreel alayhi salam over here advised him, right? He pointed to him and he said what? Tawada' li rabbik, right? He told him, be humble, humilate to your Lord. And so he told him, so the Prophet said, Abdan Nabiyya, right? Abdan Rasul, I'll become a slave or servant who is a prophet. So here Jibreel alayhi salam wants the best for the Prophet. This is the kind of relationship they really had. And really we don't realize, this is a relationship that spanned not just from the from through the Prophet to the Prophet, but even prior to the Prophet to the Prophet. The case of the chest, opening of the chest and the washing and all these things, that was Jibreel alayhi salam. Watching over the Prophet that was Jibreel alayhi salam. So there was a beautiful connection of Jibreel, and we quite often don't realize this connection. But to be honest, it's a very, very strong relationship that they had. Yes?
So, I mean, the example you gave is when even Jibreel got scared, he thought the day of judgment. It was Mikhail, right?
Mikhail, yes. There was another narration, right? When he froze,
yeah,
right?
Thought it's
because Mikhail, what's Mikhail in charge of? No, that was Israfil. Israfil actually had come down, yes. And that's why Jibreel alayhi salam froze, because he thought it was the day of judgment. Because Israfil had never come down before.
So exactly. So to that point, we saying that angels that have intelligence, not Jibreel, other angels also have wisdom and intelligence. It's not kind of more like
each the amount of knowledge that they have.
Okay.
Because
So
not all angels are equal.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. All right. Now there are other things that angels do, and so I'm just talking about the relationship between the humans that they have. So you have angels. You know how in cartoons or movies. Cartoons, you have the devil on one side, the angel on one side. You know that happens. To some extent, it is true. Each of us has a qareen from an angel and the shaitan, okay, the jinn. The jinn obviously is telling you to do bad things, and the angel is telling you to do good things. So even the Prophet ﷺ, so this is Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, مَا مِنْكُم مِّنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا وَقَدْ وُكِّلَ بِهِ قَرِينُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَقَرِينُهُ مِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. None of you except that he has his companion, who's been given his companion from the jinn, and the companions from the angel. And so they ask, even you, O Messenger of Allah, وَإِيَّاكَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ قَالَ وَإِيَّاي وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَعَانَنِي عَلَيْهِ فَأَسْلَمْ فَلَا يَأْمُرُنِي إِلَّا بِخَيْرٍ. Even me, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَعَانَنِي عَلَيْهِ, He supported me over him, فَأَسْلَمْ. Aslam over here has two interpretations. Either فَأَسْلَمُ, which means I am safe from him. Right? Or فَأَسْلَمَ, which means that this jinn became a Muslim. But either way, the Prophet ﷺ is not affected by that jinn. Either the jinn became a Muslim, or Allah protected the Prophet ﷺ from that jinn, and it does not tell the Prophet ﷺ said anything. Now, there's many hadiths that mention this. For example, that the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned that the shaitan has lamma ibn Adam, right? Lamma, which means he has a portion of ibn Adam, something from him. And the angel also has a lamma. So the lamma of the shaitan, فَإِعَادٌ بِالشَّرِّ وَتَكْذِيبٌ بِالْحَقِّ. Promising him bad things would happen and belying the truth. And the angel is i'adun bil khayr, promising him something that is good, wa tasdiqan bil haqq, and making him believe in with the truth. But also, it's kind of interesting. So, for example, this is the relationship between the bad angel, not bad angel, the good angel, the angel and the jinn. So every time, for example, we go to bed, You want to go to sleep, right? The Prophet ﷺ said this in the hadith. He said, "Ibtadarahu malakun wa shaytan." Ibtadarahu, which means they hasten, right? The angel and the shaytan. فَيَقُولُ مَلَكْ اِخْتِمْ بِخَيْرٍ. The angel would say, seal your night with something that is good, that is pious. And the shaitan says, اِخْتِمْ بِشَرٍ. Right? Like, no, seal your night with something that is bad. Okay? Now I have a question. I know something that I kind of notice, and I notice that many people, and sometimes, the longer you stay up at night, the more probability you're going to do something wrong. I don't know if you guys notice that. Who stays up here a lot at night? Okay, that's something good, I guess.
It's relative. Depends
But
on
in
what's
between studying, the breaks that are taken, right? Sometimes our minds can, sway to, do something, procrastinate, do something else, right? But usually, if the longer you stay at night out, or whatever the case is, there's more probability you do something wrong. It's just kind of interesting. I don't know what it is. Unless you're occupied doing something. If you're occupied doing something, that is different. But if you're just sitting doing nothing, right? Yes? Yes? Angels and Jinns? Alright, but anyway, so they're telling him seal it with evil or seal it with good. So the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِذَا ذَكَرَ اللَّهِ حَتَّى يَغْلِبُهُ. So if he remembers Allah Ta'ala until he beats him, which means that the sleep overcomes him, طَرَدَ الْمَلَكُ الشَّيْطَانِ. Right? The angel would kick out the shaitan, وَبَاتَ يَكْلُؤُهُ, and he would sleep at the night while the angel is guarding him, protecting him. Now this is the type of relationship that the angels have with the humans, right? فَإِذَا اسْتَيْقَظَ, when he wakes up in the morning, guess what happens again? ابتدراه شيطان وملك. Right? The shaitan comes in and the angel comes in, right? فَيَقُولُ الْمَلَكْ افتح بخير. Begin with something that is good. And the shaitan says, افتح بشر. Right? So the first thing we wake up in the morning and we should say is, Alhamdulillah الذي أحيانا. Right? Begin with khayr. Right? Should not be the first thing you grab is your phone. And I know this happens. Okay? Forget about the phone. Put it aside. Throw it somewhere else. Unless it's your alarm, but even then, put it away so it can wake you up. Okay? But try to have something done. So if it's they come to him, and I think this is off. All right, we're running out of battery. So they say افتح بشر افتح بخير وافتح بشر. فإن قال الحمد لله الذي أحيا نفسي بعدما أماتها ولم يمتها في منامها. So there's a certain dua. Okay. If you say that dua, طرد الملك الشيطان وذل يأكله. The angel would kick away the shaitan, and the angel would guard the human being. Okay, so these are some of the actions with the human beings. Now what really disappoints us is that it tells us that we should increase from doing good deeds. Because really this is what brings the angels to us. Right? A lot of things it brings also allows the angels to protect us. To always remember this, but also means that if we reduce the good actions, guess who's hanging around more around you? Yeah, not the angels, the other friend of yours. Okay, the other person, individual. But anyway. Alright, now the other actions, I'm going to end with this, inshallah, because I think we're up almost an hour. Yes?
But about the night thing, but isn't that a fact when we say قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر غاسق إذا وقب, so it's a fact that the night is...
من شر غاسق إذا وقب, غاسق is what? Nightfall. إذا وقب, which is approaching, which means from the evils that are in the night,
Yes.
is because naturally speaking, the angels or a lot of bad things happen at night more than the day.
So the longer you stay in the, it's a
No, I'm talking about even if you stay at home, right? You're not going out, but you're staying at home. It's kind of funny, some of the ideas that cross your mind while you're just sitting there doing nothing. It's different if you're sitting, for example, studying or working, or you can read a Quran or praying. But if you're just sitting, surfing the net, watching TV, right? That's the time that's a bit problematic, right? You become a little bored, start grabbing your phone. Things that might be appropriate. There's a higher chance of doing it. You don't have to do it, but there's a higher likelihood of that happening. This is not from the Quran and Sunnah, it's just my observation, by the way. Right? I'm just saying, I don't know if you guys can relate to this or not. Yes?
And Prophet Muhammad said to close the doors at night, and so he already warned us from the night.
Generally speaking, because a lot of bad things happen at night.
Yeah,
Yes, close the door.
To be outside.
So that is at Maghrib, but after Maghrib is gone, you can allow them out. But it's just that time, first time of Maghrib, because this is when a lot of the shayateen come out. And so Prophet had orders to put the kids at home, right, until they, in just that period until Maghrib was complete, and then they can come back out. So really, it's not an excuse you can use on your kids. Yes.
You said shayateens, right?
Yes.
So I guess you're gonna give a comprehensive view on shaitan.
We will talk about those. Shaitan is one.
Yes.
Shayateen is a lot.
Okay.
You're mixing up shaitan with iblis. Iblis is a shaitan.
Yes.
Iblis is one of the shayateen.
Alright, so shayateens are kind of
Plural. Okay. Now, last time I'm going to mention that we still, once I'm going to mention this is like the longest chapter. Talk about the relationship, just to kind of give us a good understanding of really. It's important for you to understand this. We have to believe in the angels as Muslims, right? But it's a good idea to understand the relationship with us because it really strengthens that relationship with us and understand why things are placed that way. It also gives us confidence. But it also makes us more aware of certain things. But anyway, so one of the things we all know is that one of the jobs of the angels is to write down our deeds and actions. So this is hafz, right? Hafz the iman bin Adam, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ كِرَامًا كَاتِبِينَ. So each one is given two angels that never leave them. Period. One on the right, one on the left, and they write everything. Right? What do I mean by everything? Yes.
Whatever you do, action.
Like, that's written. Alright? Me picking up this, that is written. Right? Everything is written.
Also, they don't judge it, you just write it down as it is.
They have their own opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They're not judging it, but they have their own opinion. Right?
I mean, that's good, that's bad, that's a good deed, that's bad deed. They don't do it this way, they just write it.
Man, look at this evil guy. What is he doing? Isn't he afraid of Allah?
But is it actions only really? Because thing is it's also intention to the heart condition that
So that is
Hajj
okay.
gets into.
So okay, just to give you, I'm just gonna illustrate that it's all written, but I'm gonna get to the aspect, right? So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so he's relating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the disbelievers stand their judgment. They say, يا ولتنا ما لهذا الكتاب لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة إلا أحصاها. Right? What the disbelievers say, يا ولتنا, or woe to us. What's wrong with this book? It does not leave anything that is big or small, except that it wrote it. لا يغادر does not leave anything except that it's written. But the question is, of course, like do they write the actions of the heart? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, or not the thoughts that go by, but the actions of the heart.
Say that again.
It's not the thoughts that go in your mind,
Intention or?
but the actual actions of your heart.
So that's what I'm talking about, the actions of the heart.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about thoughts, I'm talking about the actions of the heart. Now, many of the scholars believe that they do write the actions of the heart. Now, if you guys were with us in the 40 hadith, now remember the hadith of like, إذا هم عبدي بحسنة إذا هم العبد بحسنة, right? There's another narration. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إذا هم عبدي بحسنة فلم يعملها فاكتبوها له حسنة. He's ordering the angels. If my servant intended to do a hasana and he doesn't do it, then write it. So intends, where's intention? In your heart. Okay. So they use that as evidence that perhaps that the angels also know what you intend. And so they write that down. Okay? And we're going to stop here, inshallah. Any questions?
Question is that when you're talking about protection, so angels will not protect you till you invoke them, like before sleeping or.
You're invoking Allah.
Okay.
And Allah orders him to
Okay.
protect you. Okay?
Doing wudu before going to sleep.
Doing wudu is good.
Before going to sleep.
Reciting Ayatul Kursi is good. Right? I remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is good. All these things are good. So he's enticing you, right? You know something like, I feel like when sometimes you feel you want to do something good, it's directing you to do something good, it is that angel. Okay? And then whenever you feel you want to do something bad sometimes, it could be enticing you, which is the shaitan. Okay? But of course we fall into this problem in Ramadan when it comes, in Ramadan we say that all the shayateen are tied, but we still want to do something that is wrong, that tells you the problem is now you. Right? Okay? Alright, I'm going to have to stop here because my coffee has arrived.